Hi, I'm Rich with New Life Scientific, and I want to shoot a setup video for this SP Scientific Pilot Freeze Dryer because we get a lot of customers that get these, and this one has the Encore software. So just a quick video of setting it up and kind of running through the software and how to maybe do some recipe builds. But I'm going to just move around back just to show you all the cord plugs. So we're just going to come on around so you can see exactly how everything plugs in the back of the computer, and then of course the RS-232 port cable over here. So down here you can see on the computer your standard mouse and keyboard USBs, and then you get down here and you can see this lit up software dongle here. That's very important not to lose that. Without that key you can't run the software. So then on down further you can see the RS-232 port plugged into the back into this slot here. So it's just taking this really long cord, and you see we got plenty of cord on this one, and plugging in the back there, tightening the screws here, and then bringing it over and just simply plugging it in the back on this RS-232 port here. And that's all it takes to make the connection. And while I'm back here, I'm actually just going to point out something real quick. This fluid level up here has silicone fluid in it, and right now it's clear to the top, so it actually is completely full. That's just something to kind of keep an eye on. Should never have any issues with that. It's a sealed system, kind of like the refrigeration. And then down here, this is your fill ports and your nitrogen fill for the silicone fluid cavity. So the rest of the stuff is probably not too important to keep an eye on, except one item over here. This is your isolation valve port. This is where you'll need to actually have some air, and you can actually use even like bottled air and plug it in here with a regulator and just regulate it at about 65-70 psi, I believe, and then that way the isolation port will actually be able to open and shut. It's pneumatically driven over the software, so without the pneumatic air hooked to this, you can't shut it and open it. That is controlled through the software. So hooking up the air, getting the right fitting for whatever air you're going to use is probably the first thing. I'll probably have a few fittings too that I can send along with that. So that keeping the eye on the fluids there, and then I guess last thing here, we just need to make sure you have the once you get the plugged in 220 volt, you got your on and off switch here, which is also a built-in breaker. So requires 220 30 amp service there. So I think that's about it for hooking it all up in the back. So right now we're just going to take a look at the software. So I'm just going to go back out here. Okay, so now we're looking at the screen that comes up when you boot up the computer, and you can see it has a nice Encore logo on the front of the screen here. It has the SP Scientific, so they've got a nice decal on the screen. So in order to actually get to the software, you actually have to come into this little logo here. I believe it's the Fix 5.0, and you just double click on that, and then it starts executing it to open up the software. And that's where the software will actually come up, and again you'll see SP Scientific here. So right now it automatically just logs you in as a guest, and in order to get logged out of a guest and log back in as what they call the supervisor, you got to click on guest. I'm sorry, click on the little lock next to guest and come over here and log out. Click OK. Now we need to log back in, and in order to log back in as a supervisor, we just type in super and for the name, and then also super for the password, and then log in. Log in successful, yeah, click OK. That logs us now in as a supervisor. That means we can do about anything in the software, building recipes, running some different tests for the machine. And I'll just start right up at the first here, where we see the synoptic. So when we click on that, that's just giving us what it says, synoptic view of all the components on the freeze dryer. So over here where it says stopper up and stopper down, that is for your stoppering option. You can move it up and move it down. If I click on stopper up, I can move it, and I click on stopper down, I can move it down right from the software here. So after you're run and you want to do your stoppering option, that's why you can do it right from the synoptic view. And this is also telling you can see everything's in red right now, and if it's in green, it means it's running. So basically this is just kind of watching the whole thing, what is actually running, what is not running. So you can see the vacuum pump over here, and this is a valve of the vacuum pump. You can see the compressor here. The compressor can either go into defrost mode or it can go into the condenser up here. So you can see the lines, and these are little valves. So when that valve is open, that means that the condenser is running up here if the compressor's on. And then over here you can see some more valves where from the compressor. Now what this is actually the refrigeration compressor, and this is what's cooling or actually defrosting. So this compressor is your refrigeration, and it's running through the valves here, and it can run up into your shelves up here, and this is where it'll actually show the fluids running through the shelves. So just a big nice synoptic view of everything there. And we'll come back over here to the freeze dry screen. Now this is actually where you're going to build programs. So when you click on that, you're going to come in here, and there's a lot of data to enter in here. And the first thing you're going to do is just give it a name here. You can give it a batch ID here, and this is your data entry will pop up, and this is where you make your changes. So when I click on that, you type in your data here, click OK. It'll update that window. You can move to the next window, same thing. Everything is entered in this data screen here, and you have to click OK. So the first thing you have to do is do your thermal treatment. This is where you're going to do all your freezing. So when you freeze something, you can do a step or a hold. Step rate or a hold, that means that you can actually step at a very consistent freeze rate from one point to the next. You can do it from, put your timing in here. So let's say that I want to actually do negative 35 degrees for 120 minutes, but I want to do rather than a hold, I want to actually step rate it to that point in 120 minutes. So I have a perfect climb. Like I don't have it just going as fast as it can to negative 35. I'm going to do it very consistently in between 0 and 120, and I'm going to have a perfect climb to that point. So down here in the data entry, I'm just going to simply put in R. If I just put in R, it'll actually change hold to rate. So that means it's a step rate. So it's, like I said, if you want to do certain steps where you need it to freeze to a certain temperature, and then you need to step it down a little bit, step it back up, you have up to 12 programmable slots for thermal treatment alone, and that is more than plenty. So once you get the thermal treatment done, then you're going to come down to the freeze, condenser, and evacuate. So it's going to go, once this finishes up and you have all zeros, it will recognize zeros, it'll immediately come down to this point here, and it'll start running these. Now these are settings you don't really need to mess with, because this is just saying that I need the freeze temperature to -40. You can actually change that depending on what you need your temperature here. But as far as the vacuum start, do not change that. That should stay the same. And then you can actually change the vacuum if you need to, but I would recommend leaving it at 300 millitorr. And then if you do need to change it, we can change it up here in the vacuum pressure up here. Because if you try to pull too deep of a vacuum right off the start, you're going to throw it into an air. It's better to actually have this number in a higher range. So when you come into the primary drying, so again, you have hold and you have rate. And it's as simple as clicking on hold, just typing in the letter R, press OK. You can change it back to hold by just typing H, press OK. So again, the rate and the hold is basically if you want to step the thawing process, just the opposite of the thermal treatment, the thawing process, if you want to step it down from a certain point, a certain time, then you can do it here the same way. Say if you want to just say, hey, okay, the first primary drying step, I'm just going to hold it at -55 degrees for 120 minutes. That's what's actually in here from the previous user of this machine, and they wanted to hold it at 300 millitorr. And the pressurized was 0, but that's pretty typical to actually hold it at -55. A lot of people use that recipe. And then they'll drop it here. Now this is where a lot of people say, well, I want to ramp it to -25 in the 120 minutes rather than just drop it to -25 and hold it there. So I want to ramp it. Or you could say, well, I want to ramp it in 30 minutes and then hold it for another 180. So this is your time slot. This is your vacuum pressures. As you're moving down, your pressure should be setting at lower, just like this. It's starting at 300, 200, and 100. And then it has the pressure rises here that you can set in. But these are your main recipe building areas. You can do a pressurized test, and it will actually close the valve off. And the valve I'm talking about is the one that's pneumatically driven, and so that you can actually do a test to check all your moisture levels. And I'm not going to get into that too much, but you can just set your seconds, you can enable, and then when you get down to the secondary drying, you can you don't have to use a secondary drying actually. If you don't need to, you can put all zeros, it'll skip it. But again, you can have a pressurized test here too. So that covers most of the actual recipe building on that screen. The next screen is the leak test screen. This is actually just a simple test you can run for any leak tests and for your vacuum. So if you're running it, you have to make sure your doors are shut and everything, and also your drain valve down there. I'll just point that out real quick. If this is not unplugged, you'll suck in ambient air there. So that has to be unplugged to run any kind of leak test. And then the next screen down is a function test screen, and this is a really nice test. This is one I would probably run as soon as you set it up. This is going to run all this warm and cold test, and you see it has a bunch of set points. It times it, how fast does it take to get to those set points, to make sure that the machine is running efficient as it can. If it doesn't pass the function test, then there's an issue somewhere, and a lot of times it's usually around the vacuum where maybe a door didn't seal quite right. So just like, again, make sure your doors are shut and everything is ready to go for that. So running the cycle start here, you just click it, walk away, and it takes a little while to run, but it's definitely something that I would recommend after you set the machine up. And then over here you have the semi-auto. Now this is just an auto way to turn different items on and off. So you just click on the switch and you can see the switch flips up and the vacuum kicked on. I could turn the vacuum off, click it again. I can turn the freeze on, which is actually the shelves freezing. I can turn the condenser on and have the condenser freezing. I can have a vacuum release the vacuum release valve. You can hear it back there. I can run the defrost here, and here I can run the isolation valve. Now again, I would need to put pneumatic air into that port that I showed earlier. This will not run without pneumatics back there. So I can still click it, but without the pneumatics to actually push the valve open, it won't work. And then we go down to historical trend. And this is kind of a nice, this is where your recipe is going to follow along. It's going to have all kind of lines that have graphs on it. And down here you're going to see all the colors. So each color, like your condenser is blue, your shelf is green, temperature for your reference shelf is black, and then you get into your temperature probes, and you got your vacuum, and you got all these colors, and it's going to build the graph, and you got your temperatures on the left here, and then also it follows, so you can see temperature and vacuum both are based on the side of this chart here. So you can see we started recording a little bit ago. We haven't been really running anything. If I was to turn some things on and turn the shelf on, or any of the items, I'd run it and I'd come to this screen, I could actually see the progress in a really nice graph here. And so it's tracking this and it's recording this. So I could actually come down here and I can actually modify this chart by changing the date. And I can go, I can go clear back. If I want to go back in the years, I can go clear back, as long as there was something. And if I pick 2017 and and then click apply, and it wants a custom duration, but just kind of briefly going over this, you can go way back and track every single thing this machine's done, because it's time logged, and it logs everything you've done on this machine. So even the previous user, you can go back and look at their data on it. So that's just a way to go back and look at everything, and then you can actually print the screen here, different things on here. You can just, like I said, you can play around with it, learn a little bit. Here, your chart durations, you can change from 1 hour, 12 hours, 24-hour periods, and that's the length of this graph here. If you want a 1 hour visualization, you can type it in there. So when I clicked it, you can see just us standing here running this, since we've actually plugged the machine in, it started recording right here. Anytime this machine hasn't been plugged in, like if we went back in time where this machine was not plugged in, there would be nothing. There would be blank screen, kind of like it just started right here. So just running this test, you can see exactly when I started it by just this graph here. So that's pretty much this screen here. We're going to go back and close this and come back out again. And so that was a historic trend. And the product probe screen is just a little screen that identifies all the probes. You got 8 of them in this machine, I believe it looks like. And that's just telling you the temperatures. And then we go down to the maintenance screen. This is it's got 3 different tabs on here. The first one is a configuration screen, and this is just basically telling you all the temperatures, what they are currently, and kind of being able to identify everything in this screen here. There's a few different things you can do. You can actually make some changes in here because this is under the maintenance screen, and this is something that you can actually change a few things on it. I'm actually going to go back and go to the calibration screen because this is what I want to kind of cover. And one thing about when you have a freeze dryer, it's good to calibrate your thermocouples. And I think we've already done it on this, but even after shipping it and everything, it's a good idea to actually do it. And it actually tells you how to do it right here. So to calibrate each point, you need to apply a known zero, such as an ice bath or a thermocouple simulator. So an ice bath is one of the easiest ways to actually calibrate your thermocouples. So you have 8 product thermocouples, and let's just point them out over here real quick. You have 8 of them here. So if I open this up and I get me an ice water bath in a cup, and I can take these out and I could stick this in and get the setting to where I know that ice water bath is 0 and it's been in there the required amount of time, and it's not showing 0 on the calibration chart, then I can hit the new value and set it at 0, and I can put all of them in and reset all. But so you would actually put your new value in and then calibrate them. You can do your condenser, you can do your shelf inlet, your interstage. But at this point, the only ones you really have access to, unless you want to open up the panels, is your actual product probes. And that's the ones where you're measuring your temperatures anyways, so that's the ones you would want to calibrate the most often, as long as you're using these probes to do all of your freezing and your thermal treatments. So those are your most important thermocouples that you'll want to, like I said, once in a while do the ice bath, or you can do like we do. We actually do have a simulator where we can actually simulate the temperature and calibrate it that way. A lot of people don't have simulators, so ice bath is the next best thing. And if you are interested in a simulator, you can contact us and we can point you in the right direction for one of those. So I know that we've pretty much, I believe, done on all the probes. But like I said, I would recommend doing that right away too. And then we can move down to, so that was the maintenance screen. That covered about all that. And not sure what the cycle continue and freeze dry, so you can end your freeze dry cycle here. You can backfill. The backfill is too another option. So if you don't want to backfill after you've pulled a deep vacuum and you don't want to backfill with ambient temperature, then I would recommend getting a bottle of nitrogen, and I'm going to point it out over on the machine here. You can hook up right here to your inert gas. So this is where your backfill is going to pull either ambient or it's going to pull nitrogen in, or if you even have another gas that you want to pull in. So that is an option that you can do, and that backfill button will click and it would actually open up and allow the gas in. Let's see, historical export. This is another way to go and export your data from any runs you've done on any dates. It's just setting the right date. You can actually go back and go to historical trend to find the date if you need to, bring the date in and export it. You can print the screen too. You can print any screen that you're looking at. So if you wanted to go to different ones, you can print the alarms if you need to do that. And then it has an acknowledge button at the bottom for acknowledging. So that's the rundown on this software. There's a lot more in depth to learning when you get into building a recipe and learning how to do your testing. But that's pretty much our knowledge of it. I haven't really went in depth and built recipes, particular on this one, but the recipe builder on this machine, on this software, is very similar to the Wizard 2.0. So it's very similar. It's pretty straightforward. It's just got your times, your temperatures, hold, and the step rate, like I said, type R, type H, and into the box down here, automatically it will go to hold, or what I call ramp or rate, step rate. And then you put your times, pressures, pressurized, and then your differences. Now, this is a couple areas that this software has that the Wizard doesn't have. And then the pressure rise tests. Like I said, you can isolate the shelves from the whole system and do a pressure rise test, and it'll actually determine if there's moisture left in the drying process. So that's about it. I think that's a pretty long video. It should give a lot of information. It's very easy just to sit down and spend a couple hours learning this before you actually run it and familiarize yourself with the software really well. And like I said, it's fairly simple to plug it in and control the machine and run everything. And then also real quick over here too, I showed you the stoppering option on the software, but let's say the machine is done and you don't want to go to the computer to do the stoppering function. You can just actually do it here too. Just a simple up and down button, and that just simplifies it. So when you're ready to drive the stoppers in and get your items out, it makes it a little quicker. Inert gas, and right here is where you will put your oil in for your vacuum pump. You keep an eye on your vacuum pump here, and when the oil start getting really dark where it needs to be changed, it's very simple. We actually give you an extractor that will give you, you'll actually unplug this and plug the extractor in and just pump the oil out. After you open up the valve, you can pump it out till the oil is completely out. You'll shut the valve there, and once the valve's shut, keep that stay there. Well, and then you'll take the cork out and you can just dump your oil in here and then watch your oil level rise back up to the top notch. Stop putting oil in, put your plug back in, close it, have a rag to kind of wipe up any drips, and you're ready to operate it again. So just a visual inspection to keep an eye on the oil. So that is pretty much it. It's a really nice machine, and I think it's going to work great for all your needs. If you have any questions, let me know, but I pretty much explained everything I know about the software. So anything beyond what I've explained, I would say that you'll probably have to just explore it. And I appreciate you watching. And again, Rich from New Life Scientific.